Okay. So we've got a really interesting pile of stuff here
Yeah.
about TikTok and the EU's Digital Services Act,
Right.
the DSA.
Yeah, the DSA, basically,
It's like a rule book
yeah, like a rule book.
that the EU is using.
To try to make the internet a
Yeah.
safer and more transparent place.
Yeah.
Especially for these
Especially for platforms.
Huge
Right,
platform.
with millions of users, right?
Millions of users, exactly.
Huge.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
Yeah.
TikTok is right in the spotlight here.
Yeah.
They were designated a very large online platform.
Oh, why?
Or a VLOP back in April 2023.
Okay.
Because they have something like 45 million
Whoa.
monthly users in the EU.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Yeah,
and so that means they're under
Yeah.
extra scrutiny from the European Commission.
Right. Yeah, because being a VLOP means you've got more
eyes on
eyes on you. Yeah.
Yeah.
From the EU.
And the DSA has all sorts of requirements
Okay.
for these platforms. Like, you've got to provide clear ways for users to report problems.
Okay.
And they want these platforms to explain
Yeah.
how those algorithms work.
The recommendation algorithms.
Yes, exactly. The ones that decide what content you see.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
the Commission is particularly worried about TikTok
Okay.
and whether they're doing enough to protect their users.
Right.
Especially young people.
I can see why they'd be concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many stories
Oh, absolutely.
about social media, like being addictive.
Yes.
Or leading people down these,
Rabbit holes.
weird rabbit holes. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where things get really interesting.
Right.
One of the biggest concerns was this app
Okay.
called TikTok Lite.
TikTok Lite.
It was designed for users who,
Yeah.
had limited data,
Right.
which is, a good thing. Makes sense. But it had this rewards program built in,
Okay.
and that's what raised red flags.
Rewards program. So, like, what kind of rewards?
Like, you could earn points
Okay.
for watching videos,
Okay.
liking content,
Right.
even checking in on the app every day.
So pretty standard stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you see it everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But the Commission was worried that this would make TikTok
Oh, okay.
even more addictive,
Especially
especially for younger users.
Yeah.
They were concerned about
the impact.
an impact on well-being.
So it wasn't really about the content itself,
No, not so much the content.
but the way the app was designed
Yes,
to kind of keep people hooked.
exactly.
Looking
Yeah,
for
they
matter.
they called it having a critical impact on user well-being.
A critical impact. Wow.
Yeah.
And to avoid any further action,
Right.
TikTok actually withdrew
The whole program.
this entire TikTok Lite rewards program.
Yeah, they pulled it from the EU.
Wow, that's a big concession.
It is, and they even promised not to launch anything similar
Oh, wow.
that would, kind of bend the rules.
So does this mean they're in the clear now?
Well, not so fast.
Oh,
The Commission is still looking into other aspects of TikTok.
okay.
They're trying to figure out
Yeah.
if the app is designed to
Wait.
keep people hooked in a way that could be harmful.
So like intentionally.
Yeah, intentionally.
Wow.
They're also concerned about these rabbit holes
Rabbit holes, right?
where users can get stuck
Yeah.
in these endless loops of content that might not be so great for them.
Right. It sounds like the EU is really
They're taking it very seriously.
taking this seriously.
Yeah,
But where do they draw the line?
that's a great question.
I mean, isn't it up to people to,
It's a tricky one.
control their own,
Yeah,
social media use?
that's the debate, right?
Yeah.
Some people argue that platforms have a responsibility to design their apps in a way that's,
Okay.
minimizes potential harm.
Right.
But then others say, look, it's up to users
Right. Yeah.
to
And
be
yeah,
responsible.
exercise self-control.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the DSA seems to be somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
It's acknowledging that,
Yeah.
the way an app is designed
Right.
can influence how people behave,
Right. Okay.
and that these platforms need to be more upfront
Okay.
about how they're using all this powerful stuff.
Right. It's about transparency,
Transparency, yeah.
which this actually brings up
Yeah.
this whole concept of algorithmic transparency. Can you kind of explain that?
Well, algorithmic transparency is about,
Yeah.
pulling back the curtain
Okay.
on these algorithms that decide what we see online.
Right. Right.
The EU wants platforms like TikTok
Yeah.
to be more open about
Okay.
how these algorithms work, what they consider,
Yeah.
and how they might be shaping our experience.
Yeah.
So it's about giving users more insight into how these things work
Yeah, how these algorithms
behind the scenes.
working behind the scenes, yeah.
Right.
And it also allows regulators and researchers to better understand how these systems might be contributing to problems.
Like what kind of problems?
Well, like filter bubbles,
Okay.
echo chambers, the spread of misinformation.
Okay, so we talked about the TikTok Lite rewards program.
Right.
And this whole concern about algorithmic transparency. What else are they concerned about?
Well, they're looking into whether TikTok is doing enough to protect minors.
Okay.
You know, things like age verification.
Right.
And preventing kids from seeing things they shouldn't be seeing.
Okay.
And there are also questions about their advertising.
Okay.
And how they're targeting users.
This is starting to feel like a pretty
it's a long list.
Long list of concerns.
Yeah.
So what could happen to TikTok?
Well, the DSA gives the EU some real power.
Okay.
They can issue fines.
Okay.
They can demand changes. And they can even impose temporary bans.
Whoa.
So the stakes are high for TikTok.
Yeah.
They need to show that they're
taking
this seriously.
Regulations seriously.
Yeah.
This whole situation with TikTok, it shows you
it's complicated, right?
How complicated this relationship is.
Yeah.
Between
these powerful platforms,
the people who use them,
and us, the users.
Right.
I mean, where do we draw the line?
You hit the nail on the head.
Between individual responsibility.
It's the big question.
Yeah.
And it's one that we're all struggling with.
Yeah.
As technology keeps changing.
Right.
What's clear is that the EU is trying to find a balance with the DSA. They want to protect users.
Okay.
But they also recognize that these platforms are important. Right. Yeah.
A part of our lives.
Yeah.
And it's complicated.
It is.
It's really complicated.
And it sounds like this is just the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Of the EU's scrutiny of TikTok.
This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's interesting. We were just talking about this whole balancing act between what users are responsible for and what platforms are responsible for, because that comes up big time when you look at the EU's concerns about TikTok's age verification process.
Yeah, that's right. We touched on that earlier, the whole issue of kids accessing content.
Yes.
That's not meant for them.
Exactly.
So how is TikTok handling age verification right now?
Well, they have a basic age gate.
Okay.
When you sign up, you've got to enter your birthday.
Right. Sounds simple enough.
Right.
A problem.
The problem is it's so easy
for kids to lie about their age.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Especially teenagers.
Or teenagers are tech savvy.
Yeah.
They can get around these things.
They know what they're doing.
Exactly.
It seems like more of
it's just a formality.
The formality than an actual deterrent.
Exactly. And there's research out there.
Oh, really?
From groups like Ofcom and the ASA.
Okay.
And they've shown that a lot of underage users on social media, including TikTok, have lied about their age to get on these platforms.
So the EU is basically worried that this age verification thing
that it's not working.
Is not really doing its job.
Yeah, they see it as a major vulnerability.
Right.
Especially because of potential risks.
To young people.
To kids, exactly, who are seeing things they shouldn't be seeing.
That they're not ready for.
Right.
So what's the solution then?
That's the million-dollar question.
I mean, how can TikTok actually make sure that they're keeping minors out of the parts of the platform that are for adults?
Right.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, what are some of the approaches they're trying?
Well, some platforms are saying, "Hey, upload your ID."
Oh, okay.
To verify your age.
But that seems like...
But that raises huge privacy concerns.
Nightmare.
Absolutely, you're right.
Yeah.
It's a very sensitive area.
Yeah.
And then what about people who don't have a government ID?
Right, yeah. So, it's a tricky...
It's a complicated issue.
Yeah.
So then some platforms are saying, okay, well, let's use these third-party age verification services that use AI, and they look at your face to estimate your age.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds pretty futuristic.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's an area where the technology is changing really fast.
Yeah.
But, again, there are ethical question.
Right. And are they accurate? Accuracy issues, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a complex topic.
It really is.
We could do a whole other deep
dive just on that.
Just on that. Yeah.
But the main takeaway is that the EU is putting the pressure on TikTok to find a solution.
To figure this out.
Yeah, they've got to do something.
Right.
The DSA makes it very clear.
Okay.
Protecting minors is a top priority.
Absolutely. So age verification is one piece of the puzzle here.
Right.
But you also mentioned concerns about TikTok's,
the recommendation algorithm
and those
rabbit holes
we talked about earlier.
The EU's worried that TikTok's algorithm, which decides what videos people see, might be contributing to these rabbit holes.
Yeah, okay.
Where users get stuck.
Yeah.
Watching all this content.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
Scrolling and scrolling.
For hours.
Yeah, and then you realize,
what am I doing?
Why am I watching cat videos for an hour?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And while cat videos might not be a problem, the worry is that these algorithms, even though they're great for making things personalized, could accidentally be promoting content that's harmful or misleading or even dangerous.
So it's like the algorithm is
it's shaping
our reality,
our view of the world based on what it thinks we want.
Exactly.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's where algorithmic transparency comes back.
Okay. Right.
So the DSA is saying platforms like TikTok, hey, you've got to explain how your recommendations work.
So they can't just be like...
You can't hide behind it.
It's magic.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They have to give users clear information about what's influencing what they see in their feeds.
Like what kind of things?
Things like how they're using the app.
Okay.
What they're engaging with.
Right.
Even their location.
Okay, so it's all about giving users more...
control
over their
online experience.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
The idea is to help them understand how the algorithm is working.
Yeah.
And give them more control over their own feeds.
But how do you actually achieve that?
The challenge.
I mean, most people aren't,
They don't have a computer science degree.
Computer scientists, yeah.
But the DSA is saying these platforms have to provide explanations that are
easy to understand.
Easy to understand, yeah. This might mean interactive tools.
Okay.
Showing users how their data is being used.
Okay.
Or summaries of the main factors.
Okay.
Driving their recommendations.
Right.
It's about making it clear.
Right.
And accessible.
Yeah.
For everyone. I like that it's about making these complex things understandable.
For everyone.
For the average person.
Yeah. And it also helps researchers and regulators better understand these algorithms and see if there are any biases or risks.
It sounds like this whole idea
it's a big step
of transparency is a big step towards
holding these platforms accountable for what their algorithms are doing
to society.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree.
It's a shift towards more transparency and giving users more power in the digital world.
That's awesome.
And the EU's leading the way.
And it's interesting that we're talking so much about transparency.
Right.
Because another thing the EU's looking into is
data access for researchers.
Data access for researchers, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain why that's important?
The DSA says that platforms like TikTok have to provide access to their data for qualified researchers who are
the risks associated with these platforms.
So it's about giving researchers the information they need.
The tools they need, to
understand how platforms like TikTok are impacting
society.
Video.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without data, it's really hard to study these things. We need the data to figure out how these algorithms work.
Okay.
How they're changing how people behave.
Right.
What the risks and the benefits are.
But I imagine there are some privacy concerns there.
Huge privacy concerns.
Yeah.
So how does the DSA deal with that?
Right.
It's a tough balance. You're right.
Yeah.
They're trying to find a middle ground.
Okay.
They want to support research.
Yeah.
But they also want to protect people's privacy.
Right. Okay.
So they set out these guidelines for what data can be accessed.
Okay.
How it can be used.
Yeah.
And what safeguards need to be in place.
So it's not like researchers can just get whatever data they want.
It's not a free-for-all. It's very controlled.
Right.
There are rules.
Yeah.
And the EU is watching closely to make sure that platforms like TikTok are following the rules.
So it sounds like
differentiative.
Yeah. The EU is taking a very
comprehensive
approach to all of this.
Yeah, they're looking at everything.
Yeah.
Age verification.
Right.
Algorithm transparency.
Yeah.
Data access.
Data access, yeah.
It's a big deal.
It's really it's amazing to see how they're using their power.
The regulatory power.
Yeah.
To try to shape the future of the internet.
It's fascinating.
It's fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it seems like we've just kind of
scratched the surface.
Scratched the surface of this.
Yeah.
What else is the EU
there's more
focused on?
Oh yeah, definitely.
It feels like we've been talking a lot about TikTok.
But I'm kind of curious about the bigger picture here.
Right.
Is TikTok really the only one?
That's a good question.
In the hot seat? Or?
It's not just TikTok.
Are there others?
The DSA actually applies to a whole range of online services.
Okay.
Not just the big names like TikTok.
So, like what else?
Think online marketplaces, social media networks, even search engines.
Oh, wow.
It's broad.
So it's really about...
It's about setting standards
Yeah.
for the whole online world.
Not just going after...
not just targeting specific companies.
Certain companies.
It's about, setting the rules of the game.
Okay.
For how these platforms should operate.
Right.
No matter how big or small they are.
Okay.
It covers things like how to deal with illegal content.
Yeah.
How to moderate user-generated content.
Yeah.
Being transparent about how things work.
So it's about creating like a
level playing field.
Level playing field. Okay.
But everyone's playing by the same rules.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how that would be important.
Yeah.
Especially as things get...
more and more blended.
Blended, yeah.
The lines between different services are blurring.
Yeah, yeah.
And to make sure everyone's actually following the rules.
Right.
The DSA has some teeth.
Okay.
So each EU country has what they call a digital services coordinator.
A digital services coordinator. That sounds very official.
It is. They're the enforcers.
Okay.
They're the ones making sure the platforms are following the rules.
So they're
keeping an eye on things.
The DSA police.
You could say that, yeah.
Right.
If a platform isn't complying,
yeah,
they can investigate.
Okay.
They can issue fines.
Right.
They can even impose temporary bans.
Whoa, okay.
If a platform's really ignoring the rules.
So they have
They have a big job.
Power.
Yeah, a lot of responsibility.
It sounds like they have their work cut out for them.
Oh.
Keeping track of all of that.
Definitely.
Okay, so we have the DSA.
Right.
We have these digital service coordinators.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else involved in making sure this works?
There's one more piece.
Yeah.
It's called the European Board for Digital Services.
European Board for Digital Services. Okay, what do they do?
They're an independent advisory group.
Okay.
With people from each EU member state.
Okay.
And the Commission.
Sure.
Like the referees.
Okay.
They make sure the DSA is being applied fairly across the EU.
The whole EU. So they step in.
If there's a dispute.
If there's a fight.
Yeah. Or confusion about how the DSA should be interpreted.
Okay, so they provide...
They provide guidance.
Yeah.
They help settle disagreements.
Okay.
And they issue recommendations to make the DSA work better.
Better.
It's about making sure everyone's on the same page.
So it seems like...
It's a well-thought-out system.
Yeah, the EU has really thought this through.
Definitely. They've put in a lot of checks and balances.
Yeah.
To make sure the DSA has real impact.
Yeah.
It's not just words on paper.
What does all this mean for TikTok?
They're under pressure to clean up their act.
Okay.
The commission, the coordinators, the board, they're all watching.
Okay.
TikTok has to show they're taking the DSA seriously.
They've got to make changes.
They've got to make real changes. No more shortcuts.
Okay.
No more trying to bend the rules.
So no more...
No more rewards programs.
Yeah.
That accidentally encourage addictive behavior. They have to show they're serious about protecting their users.
Especially kids.
The younger users.
They have to be more transparent.
Okay.
About their algorithms. And work with researchers.
Okay.
The EU is not messing around.
It's really interesting to see how a platform like TikTok, which is so huge.
Global phenomenon.
Yeah, global phenomenon is having to...
answer to these regulations.
Yeah. It shows you things are changing.
The landscape is shifting.
It really does. It's a great example of how even the biggest tech companies have to be accountable to democratic oversight.
Democratic oversight, yeah.
And it's not just Europe. The DSA is setting a precedent for other countries too.
That are also
who are trying to figure out
how to regulate these platforms. Massive platforms, yeah.
It's a global conversation now.
This feels like just the beginning.
It is. It's the start
of a much larger conversation.
Of a bigger discussion about the role of technology in our lives.
Yeah.
How do we balance innovation and responsibility?
Wow, that's a big one.
It's a big question.
Yeah.
And the DSA is a step in that direction. It makes you think about power control and the future of the internet itself.
I mean, we've covered so much in this deep dive.
A lot of ground.
From TikTok's specific issues to this broader...
to the bigger picture.
Picture of the DSA,
Right.
And it's clear that the EU...
It's serious.
...is taking a very strong stance here.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, and I think that the takeaway for me is that this is something that we all need to be...
paying attention to.
Absolutely. How these platforms are regulated.
It's going to shape how we live online.
Yeah.
How we connect, communicate, even how we think.
It affects all of us.
It affects everyone.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
We got to stay informed.
Stay engaged.
Stay engaged and keep asking these tough questions.
Keep asking the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into TikTok.
My pleasure.
And the EU's attempts to,
It's been a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, to regulate big tech, it's been really fascinating.
It has.
And to all of you listening out there,
keep
exploring and stay curious.
Absolutely.